She was the kind of woman who didn't need to say much to be noticed. Her presence was enough subtle, but magnetic. From the first time you met her, something felt different. She didn't flirt the way others did. She didn't rely on charm or games. Instead, she showed up with honesty in her eyes and a calm that made you want to stay longer in her space. Conversations came easy. You didn't have to think too hard, didn't have to impress. It felt natural, like you'd known her longer than you actually had. Odd. You'd laugh, share stories, sit in silence without it feeling awkward. And in that simplicity, something real started to grow. You noticed how she lit up when she talked about the things she loved, how her tone changed when she felt safe, how her eyes softened when she didn't have to hide. You found yourself thinking this could be something, not because she did anything extravagant, but because she made you feel like you could finally stop pretending. It wasn't about trying to win her. It was about being seen, understood, and met in the middle. And for a while, she matched your energy. She showed up, replied, laughed, leaned in. It was unfolding in a way that didn't feel forced. But just as quickly as it began, the vibe started to shift. Her messages weren't as long. The warmth in her tone cooled. She pulled back not completely, but enough to make you wonder. You went from daily check-ins to waiting for replies. You started analyzing every word, every pause. Was it something? You said something you missed? The confusion crept in slowly, quietly. One minute you were building something, and the next you were left holding questions. And that's when you began to feel that something deeper was happening. She wasn't the type to vanish overnight, but her shift was undeniable. The girl who once laughed freely now responded with brief texts. The woman who used to share her thoughts late into the night now kept conversations surface level. And yet you couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't about disinterest. It felt more like retreat, like she was protecting something fragile inside her. You started to pay closer attention not just to what she said, but to what she didn't. Her pauses grew longer, her smiles more forced. It wasn't coldness. It was fear disguised as indifference. And it wasn't that you'd done something wrong. If anything, it was because you were doing something right. You were showing up with consistency, with clarity, with patience. You weren't demanding more than she could give, but you were giving her something she wasn't used to: security. And that's what scared her. She was used to men who chased, conquered, then changed. She knew how to navigate distance, but intimacy? That was uncharted territory. You didn't just notice her beauty, you noticed her hesitations, her little habits, the way she tried to stay composed when her eyes gave her away. You saw her, truly saw her, and that's where the discomfort began. Not because being seen is wrong, but because it's rare. For someone who spent years building armor, being fully known feels like standing in the open, vulnerable, defenseless. She wasn't pushing you away to punish you. She was pulling back to protect herself from a connection she didn't know how to handle. And while she was figuring herself out, you were left trying to balance between caring and not crowding, between giving her space and not disappearing. She was trying to find her footing in a feeling that felt too real too fast. And you were quietly holding space, hoping she'd come back. There came a moment when everything felt like a test unspoken, subtle but heavy. She didn't say it outright, but you could feel her pulling back just to see what you'd do. Oh, maybe. She didn't even realize she was doing it. It wasn't manipulation, it was defense. Her silence was asking questions she didn't have the courage to voice. Would you notice the shift? Would you panic? Would you start chasing harder, over-explaining, trying to fix something she hadn't admitted was broken? Or would you stay, grounded, unshaken by her distance? Deep down, she needed to know if your calm was real or just a tactic. She'd been here before with men who said the right things until things stopped being easy. So she waited. She changed the pace, slowed her replies, backed away from the closeness just enough to observe your response. And when you didn't flinch, when you didn't beg or chase or crumble under the silence, something shifted in her too. Because in a world full of reaction, your stillness stood out. You weren't trying to manipulate her emotions back into motion. You were letting her feel what she needed without making it about you. And in doing so, you showed her something. Rare emotional leadership. A control, not dominance, but presence. You weren't there to prove yourself through words. You were showing it through restraint, patience, and the kind of strength that doesn't yell to be seen. She may not have said it, but she noticed. Your stability gave her space to breathe. For the first time, she started to wonder if maybe this wasn't a test after all. Maybe this was what it felt like to not have to run, to not have to push, just to see if someone would stay. She hadn't planned to feel anything deep. In fact, she walked into it all telling herself this would stay light, simple, without strings. It's just fun, maybe a little flirtation, nothing too serious. She told herself. She could handle that she wanted that. But feelings have a way of sneaking in when we least expect them. Slowly, without warning, she found herself thinking about you when she was alone. She'd catch herself replaying things you said, smiling at the way you looked at her, feeling that flutter in her chest when your name popped up on her screen. And that's when the tension began, not between the two of you, but inside her. The reality of what she was feeling didn't match the story she had told herself. The walls she built to keep emotions out started to crack under the weight of something real. And instead of embracing it, she froze. Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like distance. It's not about you being wrong, it's about her being unprepared. She didn't want to admit how deeply you were getting to her, so she did what she knew. She stepped back, hoping that space would shrink the feelings. But it didn't. The more she tried to convince herself to pull away, the more she realized she was already too far in. She wasn't avoiding you out of rejection. She was avoiding herself, the part of her that wanted more than just casual, the part that wanted to trust again, to lean in, to stop pretending indifference. You didn't break her, you awakened. Part of her that had been buried under layers of self-protection, and now she was trying to reconcile the past she thought defined her with the future you were quietly offering. There was a version of herself she hadn't met until you came along. She was used to being the one in control, emotionally guarded, self-reliant, unshakable on the surface. She prided herself on never needing anyone, on being the one who stayed calm, stayed cool, stayed detached. But around you, something shifted. You didn't try to outshine her, outsmart her, or overpower her. You just showed up steady, grounded, unbothered by her moods. And that stability created a space she wasn't prepared for. She started feeling softer, more feminine, more vulnerable. Not because you demanded it, but because you made it safe to be that way. And that scared her more than anything else. She wasn't used to this version of herself, the one who wanted to be held, who wanted to lean, who wanted to trust. So instead of embracing it, she ran. Not from you, but from herself. From the transformation you were triggering in her. It wasn't rejection. It was a retreat into the familiar, the self she had always been. But the truth was, she couldn't unfeel what she felt with you. She couldn't unsee the peace your presence brought. And somewhere deep down, she knew pulling away wasn't the answer. But she needed to try. She needed to test if what she felt was real or just a temporary illusion. And through it all, you didn't chase. You didn't fall apart. You didn't try to fix her or pull her back. You just stayed solid. And that's what she remembered, not the words you said, but the quiet confidence you held while she found her way back to herself. If she does return, it'll be because she realized the man you were never tried to control her feelings. He simply made space for them to exist without fear.